Life on Zira settled into a rhythm neither Kate nor Lyra had expected. It was not the grand spectacle many imagined, but something quieter, deeper, more real each morning. Kate woke to the soft hum of the palace walls, which pulsed gently like a living thing. Outside, the twin suns cast long shadows through the crystalline trees, and the air smelled of sweet ozone and blooming sky moss. At first, Kate struggled with the language. Not the words, but the silence between them. Centauri speech carried emotion. Through light patterns along their skin and subtle shifts in posture, she spent hours in the royal learning chamber practicing, until her own human gestures began to echo Lyra's grace. The court watched her closely, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, but none dared speak against her openly. Not after what happened at Viridia Prime. Still whispers followed her down the halls. She heard them in the rustle of silk robes and the two quick glances of high-born attendants they called her. The soft one, the fragile one, the human who did not belong. Kate ignored them. She walked with her head high, not out of pride, but because Lyra had told her once, your quiet strength is louder than their noise. One afternoon, while reviewing trade scrolls, in the sunlit archive, a young Centauri servant named Nessa approached her, trembling slightly. "My queen." She stammered, "May I ask you something?" Kate set down the data slate and smiled. "Of course." Nessa hesitated, then blurted out, "How do you not fear her, Katie?" Tilted her head. "How do you mean, Queen Lyra?" Nessa whispered, "She is the storm of our people, fierce, unyielding. She once banished an entire house for treason with a single word, and yet you walk beside her like she is your friend." Kate looked toward the garden where Lyra stood speaking with emissaries from the outer rim, her posture regal, but her hands gentle as she accepted a gift of starbloom petals. "I do not fear her," Kate said, "because she is not just a queen, she is also kind. She listens. She changes, she loves." Nessa blinked, all six eyes wide in wonder. "No one has ever said that about her before. That is because they only see the crown, not the woman beneath it." From that day, Nessa became Kate's shadow, bringing her tea in the mornings, showing her hidden paths through the palace gardens, teaching her which flowers glowed brightest under moonlight, and which songs the wind carried from the mountains. But peace never lasted long in the Empire. News arrived from the border world of Kalis. A human colony ship had been attacked not by pirates but by Centauri warships flying the black banner of House Vorlax, the same house whose general had tried to overthrow Lyra at the summit. Kate felt the change in Lyra before the message was even read. The queen's bioluminescence dimmed to a cold blue. Her voice grew sharp, her steps heavy with dread. "They are testing me," Lyra said, pacing the war room, her claws tapping against the obsidian floor. "If I do nothing, they will say I am weak. If I strike too hard, they will say I have become the tyrant they fear." Kate sat quietly for a long moment, then spoke softly. "What if you do something no one expects?" Lyra returned, her eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, Zenmi?" The room fell silent even. The air filters seemed to pause. "You cannot be serious," Lyra said. "I am," Kate replied. "I am human. I speak their language. I understand their fears better than any Centauri ever could. Let me go to Kalis. Not as your consort, but as a mediator. Let me talk. To them it is too dangerous. So was standing in front of armed rebels, and yet here I am." Lyra stared at her for a long time, then slowly nodded. "But you will take my personal guard, and you will wear the bond pendant if you are harmed. I will feel it, and I will burn their world to ash." Kate touched the small silver disc now warm against her chest. It pulsed faintly with Lyra's presence, a constant thread between them. The journey to Kalis took 3 days aboard the royal skiff, Helios Wing. Kate spent most of it studying human colony records and Centauri military codes. She learned that House Vorlax had been stockpiling weapons near neutral zones. They had been spreading lies that Lyra planned to dissolve the noble houses and replace them with human advisors. It was all false, but fear did not need truth to spread. When the ship landed on Kalis, the air was thick with smoke and tension. The colony was half destroyed. Buildings, charred, crops burned, but the people stood together in the central square, their faces hard, their eyes wary. Kate stepped onto the soil alone. No guards, no weapons, just her and the pendanta. Man stepped forward, his face lined with grief and anger. "You are the queen's pet?" They said you come to gloat, no? Kate said, I come to listen. She sat on the ground right there in the dust and waited. Slowly, one by one, the colonists spoke. They told her how their children had hidden in caves during the attack, how their water purifiers were smashed, how they had sent message after message to Earth and received no reply. And then an elderly woman named Elsa asked, why should we trust any Xanthari? Even you. Because Kate said, I am not asking you to trust them. I am asking you to trust me. And I promise you this. I will not leave until justice is done. That night in a makeshift tent, Kate sent a secure message to Lyra. Not a demand, not a plea, but a plant. The next morning, she stood before the ruins and announced that Queen Lyra would arrive within the cycle not with warships, but with engineers, medics, and builders. She would oversee the punishment of those who attacked, not with executions, but with exile and forced labor to rebuild what they destroyed. And then Kate did something no diplomat had ever done. She knelt and helped clear rubble with her own hands side by side with the colonists. By the time Lyra's ship descended, the people of Kalis were no longer shouting. They were watching, waiting. Lyra emerged not in royal armor, but in simple robes. Her light patterns, soft gold, not battle red. She walked straight to Kate and took her hand, then together they faced the crowd. I was wrong, Lyra said, her voice carrying across the square. I believed strength meant control, but my husband taught me that true strength is service. A murmur ran through the humans. Some cried, others nodded. From that day the story spread, not just of a queen who chose a human, but of a human who changed a queen, back on Zyra. Things were different too. The court no longer whispered, they listened. They learned. They began to see Kate not as an outsider, but as a bridge in evening. As they walked the moonlit gardens, Lyra asked, do you ever miss Earth? Kate thought of Biscuit, now happily chasing luminous moths in his custom habitat of her old apartment with its leaky faucet and tiny balcony of rainy days and cheap coffee. Sometimes, she said, but not as much as I thought I would. Why? Because home is not a place, Lyra. It is a person. And you are my home. Lyra stopped and turned to her, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Then she pressed her forehead to Kate's in the Xanthari gesture of deepest trust. That moment, the bond between them flared warm and bright. Not just neural, not just political, but real. Weeks later, a message arrived from Earth, not from the United Nations, but from an old friend from Kate's university days, Lisa, who now worked at the Xenocultural Institute. She wrote that Kate's story had sparked a revolution on Earth, not of weapons, but of mind schools. Taught Xanthari history for the first time, artists painted murals of two women under twin suns. Children played pretend as Kate and Lyra, solving galactic problems with kindness. Kate showed the message to Lyra, who read it slowly, then smiled. You have done more for peace than any treaty ever could. But the peace was fragile. Rumors reached them of a new threat, not from within the Empire, but from beyond the veil. The dark expanse past the known systems, where no ship had returned in centuries. Now signals were coming through, broken, distorted, but unmistakably artificial. And they were heading this way. Lyra called an emergency council. But Kate knew words would not be enough this time. The galaxy faced something older than empires. Something that did not care about crowns or consorts or human hearts. That night she stood on the palace balcony looking up at the stars, Biscuit curled at her feet. Lyra beside her, silent for once. What will we do? Kate asked. We will stand together? Lyra replied, as we always have, and for the first time Kate felt not fear but readiness, because she was no longer just Kate Morgan, the translator. She was Kate Morgan, the husband of a queen, the voice of two worlds. The calm in every storm, the signals grew stronger, each day like a drumbeat in the void, and somewhere out there something ancient was waking. But here on Zira, under twin suns and silver trees, two women held hands and waited, ready for whatever came next. The signals from beyond the veil grew louder, not in sound but in pattern, repeating sequences that defied known mathematics. They pulsed through deep space like a heartbeat, from something vast and old. The Xanthari long-range arrays picked them, up first then, human outposts near the rim, then even the silent Vornay monasteries deep in the nebula. All reported the same thing, a message that was not meant for one species, But for all Kate studied the data in the Royal Observatory. Her fingers, tracing lines of light on the hollow table beside her, Lyra watched the shifting symbols with narrowed eyes. This is not communication. She said this is a warning, or a challenge. Kate replied. The Council of Elders demanded action. Some called for a fleet to be sent, others for a shield wall to be raised around the inner systems, but Kate knew neither would work. This was not a war of weapons, but of understanding, and understanding required presence. I must go, she said one evening as they stood in the garden, the air cool with the scent of night blooms. Lyra did not argue. She had learned long ago that Kate's quiet certainty was not recklessness but vision. Still, her light patterns flickered with worry. The veil is not like other space. It bends time. It swallows ships whole. I know, Kate said, but if we do not go, someone else will, and they will go with guns. Not questions. So it was decided not by decree, but by choice. Kate would lead a small envoy into the unknown. Not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, but as a listener. She would take the Helios wing again, but this time with a crew of 6 human 3 Zinthari. Chosen not for rank, but for open minds. Among them was Nessa, now no longer a servant, but a junior archivist, and Lisa from Earth, who had come not for glory, but because she believed in Kate's way. The day of departure dawned gray, and still even the twin suns seemed muted, as if holding their breath at the docking ring. Lyra pressed the bond pendant into Kate's palm. It glowed, brighter than ever, a living thread between them. If you do not return, Lyra whispered, I will follow you into the dark itself. Kate kissed her forehead Zinthari style, then boarded the ship. The journey through known space took 2 weeks. Then they reached the edge, the place where star charts ended and silence began. The Helios wing crossed the boundary and everything changed. The stars behind them dimmed. The stars ahead vanished, replaced by a swirling gray mist that clung to the hull like fog on. Glass instruments failed one by one, not broken but confused, as if reality itself had softened. Then they saw it, a structure impossibly large floating in the void. Not made of metal or stone, but of something that shifted like liquid shadow, yet held perfect geometric form. It pulsed with the same rhythm as the signals. We are being scanned, Nessa said, her voice tight. Do not resist, Kate ordered. A beam of soft light enveloped the ship, not hostile but curious. Then, without warning, the crew found themselves standing not on the bridge but in a vast chamber that seemed to stretch forever in every direction. The walls were made of memory, not images, but feelings. Moments of joy, sorrow, discovery, fear. This is how they speak. Kate realized aloud. They do not use words, they share experience. A figure emerged from the mist, tall and slender like the Zinthari, but with no face. No eyes, just a smooth surface that reflected each of them back at themselves. You are the first to come without weapons, the figure said, not with sound, but directly into their minds. Its voice was calm, ancient, weary. Why have you called us? Kate asked. We did not call you, the figure replied. We warned you, the veil is thinning, the great silence is ending, others will come. Not like us, but hungry ones who consume not to understand but to erase. Who are you? We were the first. We built the veil to protect the young ones, you, the Zinthari, the Vorne, all of you, while you learned to speak, to care, to build. We watched from the dark. Kate felt the weight of that truth settle over her like a blanket. You stayed alone all this time. Someone had to. Then why show yourselves now? Because the veil is failing and we are fading. The figure turned to her specifically. You are different, human. You do not see difference as danger. You see it as a question. We have waited cycles for someone like you. And not just you, but what you represent, unity. Not by force, but by choice. What do you need us to do? Unite your peoples truly. Not just in name, but in purpose. The hungry ones feed on division. They will come soon, and if you are not one, you will be nothing. The chamber began to dissolve. The crew found themselves back on the bridge, the gray mist receding behind them. The stars returning one by one. They had been gone only minutes by ship time, but years seemed to have passed in their heart. On the return journey, no one spoke much. They did not need to. They had all felt the same truth. When they docked at Zira, Lyra was waiting not in the throne room, But at the landing pad she ran to Kate, something no Xanthari queen had ever done, and held her tightly. "You found them." "We found the truth," Kate said. "And it is more urgent than we knew." Within days, Kate stood before the Galactic Summit again, this time, not as a translator but as a voice for something older than empires. She spoke of the Veil, the Watchers, the coming storm. She did not ask for armies. She asked for trust. Many doubted. Some walked out, but others stayed. The Krell offered their hive, network for instant communication. The Naiads shared their deep-sea resonance tech to strengthen planetary shields. The Vorne monks opened their ancient archives, revealing prophecies that matched Kate's account. Even House Vorlax sent a representative, a young heir named Tarek, who looked at Kate not with hatred but with shame. "My house was wrong," he said. "Division is the real enemy, not humans." Slowly, painfully, the galaxy began to change. Trade routes opened between old enemies. Joint academies were built where Xanthari children learned human songs and human children practiced light speech. Kate and Lyra traveled from world to world, not as ruler and consort but as partners in peace. They sat with farmers on dusty moons and with engineers in orbital forges. They listened more than they spoke, and in doing so they built something stronger than treaties won. Evening on a human colony world. Kate sat on a hill watching children play a game that mixed Xanthari light patterns with Earth hopscotch. Lisa joined her, holding 2 cups of tea. "You did it," she said. "No." Kate replied, "We all did." Back on Zira, Biscuit had grown fond of Nessa, who now carried him everywhere in a specially woven sling. The cat seemed to enjoy the attention and the occasional luminous moth snack. Life was not perfect. There were still arguments, still setbacks, still nights when Kate lay awake wondering if they had done enough. But then Lyra would take her hand, and the bond would pulse warm and steady, and she would remember. They were not alone. Months passed, then a year. The signals from beyond the veil stopped, not because the threat was gone, but because the Watchers had done their part. Their final gift was a map, a network of ancient beacons hidden across the galaxy that could be activated to reinforce the veil if used together by all species. Activating them required perfect synchronization. Every world, every ship, every mind focused on the same moment. The day came clear and calm across the galaxy. At the appointed hour, Kate stood with Lyra on the palace balcony below them. Millions of Xanthari raised their hands above their cities. On Earth, Lisa stood in a field with thousands holding candles in the Krell hives. Every worker paused in unison in the Naiad. Ocean's great songs rose through the deep, and in that moment the beacons flared to life, not with light but with harmony. A wave of pure unity that rolled through space, sealing the veil once more. In the silence that followed, Kate leaned her head on Lyra's shoulder. "We did it," No, Lyra said softly. "You showed us how years later, when historians wrote of this time, they called it the Great Joining. But those who lived it knew better. It was not a single event, but 1,000 small choices, a shared cup of tea, a child's game, a cat in a sling, a queen who chose a human, and a human who chose to believe in more than fear." Kate never returned to Earth, not fully, but she did not need to. She had built a new home, not in a place, but in a promise that difference was not weakness, that love was not foolish, that even the smallest voice could calm the greatest storm. And on quiet nights when the twin suns set and the silver trees glowed soft in the dark, she would walk the gardens hand in hand with Lyra, their steps slow, their hearts full, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it not as human and alien, but as one. Peace settled over the galaxy like morning mist, soft and steady. But Kate knew better than to believe it would last forever. Calm was not the absence of storm, but the space between breaths, and she had learned to listen for the next inhale in Zira. Life moved in gentle rhythms. Kate spent her days teaching at the new Unity Academy, where human children and Xanthari young learned side by side. They built models of the Veil beacons, practiced shared songs, and played games that mixed Earth logic. With Xanthari light patterns, Nessa, now a full instructor, helped design the curriculum, while Lisa commuted from Earth every few months, bringing book seeds and stories from home. Lyra ruled with a lighter hand these days, her decrees less about control and more about connection. She opened the royal archives to all species, held monthly open courts where even the smallest farmer could speak, and she always sat beside Kate, not above her. But whispers returned, not of rebellion this time, but of something quieter. Stranger reports came from the outer colonies of missing ships, not destroyed, not attacked, just gone, vanished without a trace. No distress calls, no debris, just silence. At first, the council dismissed it as navigation errors or solar interference, but when 3 more vessels disappeared near the same sector, Kate felt the old familiar prickle on her neck, the one that meant something was wrong beneath the surface. She asked for the logs, studied the flight paths, compared them to old Centauri star charts, and found a pattern they all passed near the dead zone, a region long avoided because of unstable gravity wells and strange magnetic echoes. "I need to see it," Kate said one evening as they ate in the private garden. Lyra set down her cup, her light patterns dimming to a cautious amber. "That place is forbidden even to our scouts, the distortion scramble." Thought itself. "Maybe that is why they are taken," Kate replied. "Maybe something there is hiding, not from weapons but from notice." Lyra was silent for a long time, then nodded. "But you will not go alone." This time the Helios wing carried a full science team including Dr. Elias, a human astrophysicist who had spent his life studying spatial anomalies, and Vec, a Vornay sensor specialist, whose kind rarely left their monasteries but had come because the great joining had changed even them. As they approached the dead zone, the ship groaned like an old bone. The instruments flickered, then died, not all at once but in waves, as if something was tasting them one by one. "We are being watched," Vec said, his voice low, his armored plates shifting uneasily. "Not watched," Kate said, "felt." Then the ship lurched, not from impact but from inside, as if space itself had folded around them for a heartbeat. They saw it a tear in reality. Not black but silver, shimmering like liquid glass, and through it something moved, vast, slow, ancient. The tear closed. The crew sat in stunned silence. "What was that?" Elias whispered. "Not a ship, not a creature," Kate said, a wound back. On Zyra, she brought the data to Lyra, who summoned the High Science Council. They argued for days. Some said it was a natural phenomenon. Others feared it was a weapon left over from the Watchers, but Kate knew better. "It is alive," she said, "not like us, but like a current in the ocean. It does not mean harm. It is simply passing through, and our ships are caught in its wake, so what do we do?" One elder asked. "Seal the sector and hide." Kate shook her head. "Or we learn to sail it." The idea was madness to most, but Lyra saw the truth in it, as she always did. "Build a new ship," she ordered, "not to fight the current, but to ride it." They called it the Current Dancer, a vessel unlike any before its hull, woven with flexible alloys that could bend without, breaking its engines tuned to harmonic frequencies, not thrust, its crew chosen for calm minds, not quick reflexes. Kate would lead it. This time Lyra did not argue, but she did not smile either. The night before departure, she held Kate close, her light patterns soft and slow like a lullaby. "If you do not return," she whispered, "I will not follow you into the dark, because I know you will come back." Kate kissed her forehead and left with Biscuit curled in a travel sling on her shoulder. The cat had insisted. The Current Dancer slipped into the dead zone like a leaf on a river. The tear opened again, not violently but gently, and they passed through. On the other side, space was different colors, shifted at the edges of vision. Time stretched and compressed in waves. They saw stars being born and dying in the same glance. And then they saw Ida being made of folded space itself. Not solid, not liquid, but something in between. It pulsed with the rhythm of the universe. And as it moved, it left ripples that became gravity wells that became stars. It noticed them, not with eyes but with presence. "You are small," it said into their minds, "but you do not fear. We learned fear is a cage." Kate replied. The being drifted closer. Biscuit purred loudly, the only sound in the void. "You carry life within you. It observed not just your kind, but many. We are learning to share it." The being was silent for a long time, then it showed them something, not with images, but with feeling, a memory of the early universe, when all matter was one and loneliness had not yet been invented. Then it spoke again. "The tear is not a wound, it is a doorway, and I am its keeper. You may pass, but you must carry a truth back with you." "What truth?" "That you are not separate. You never were. The space between you is an illusion. You are all notes in the same song." The Current Dancer returned to known space, changed not in form but in spirit. The crew spoke little, but when they did, their words carried weight. Kate brought the truth to the summit, not as a decree but as a question. What if we stopped building walls and started weaving threads? The galaxy listened on Earth. They began dismantling old defense grids and replacing them with communication hubs on Xanthari worlds. They opened royal gardens. To all species, the Vorni shared their meditation techniques with human soldiers. The Krell offered hive mind links to help heal trauma. Even the dead zone was renamed the Threshold, and ships now pass through it. Not with fear, but with ceremony, leaving small tokens of unity in the current. Kate and Lyra stood on the palace balcony one evening, watching the twin suns set over a world that no longer saw borders. Do you think they understand? Kate asked. Not all, Lyra said, but enough. Biscuit jumped onto the railing and batted at a glowing moth. Nessa laughed from the doorway. Dinner is ready. They walked inside, not as queen and husband, but as partners in a story still being written. Years passed. The Unity Academy grew into a university. The current dancer made dozens of journeys, each time returning with new understanding. New songs, new ways to be together. Kate aged slower than expected. The bond with Lyra somehow stretching her human years like light through a prism. She never became Xanthari, but she became something new. A bridge made flesh. One day, while walking the gardens, she found a young human girl sitting beneath a silver tree. The girl looked up with wide eyes. You are Kate Morgani. The girl held out a small carving made of wood and light, a twin sun's pendant just like the one Lyra gave her long ago. Me mother told me your story. She said you taught the galaxy to listen. Kate knelt and took the pendant. Thank you, she said. But the galaxy taught me to speak. That night she told Lyra about the girl, and the queen smiled, her light patterns warm gold. Our work is done, she said. Not done, Kate replied, just passed on. And in that moment they both knew the greatest victory was not in saving the galaxy, but in giving it the tools to save itself. They sat in silence, watching the stars, not as rulers, not as heroes, but as two souls who had dared to believe that love was the strongest force in the universe. And somewhere far beyond the veil, the current flowed on, carrying their song. Into the endless dark, the years flowed like a quiet river on Zira, marked not by grand events but by small moments that stitched themselves into the fabric of everyday life. Kate no longer needed translation devices to understand the flicker of light along a Xanthari's arm, or the subtle tilt of a head that meant sorrow, joy, or curiosity. She had become fluent in silence and in the spaces between words. Lyra's reign had changed too. The throne room, once cold and imposing, now held soft rugs from earth woven with Xanthari thread, children's drawings pinned to the walls, and a small sun lamp corner where Biscuit napped. Most afternoons the old cat had long outlived his natural years, sustained by the gentle energy of the bond pendant and the love of two women, who treated him like royalty. But change always carried shadows. Rumors reached them from the far rim, not of war or invasion, but of something quieter, more insidious. A sickness that did not affect the body, but the mind. It began on a human mining colony called Elysium 9. Workers reported dreams that felt too real, voices that whispered in forgotten tongues. Then they stopped speaking altogether, their eyes distant as if watching another world at first. It was dismissed as stress or isolation, but when the same symptoms appeared on a Xanthari research outpost and then a Krell hive node, the pattern became undeniable. This was not random. It was spreading. Kate felt it before the reports came. A faint static in the bond with Lyra, like a radio, tuned between stations. She mentioned it one morning over tea. Lyra set down her cup, her light patterns dimming to a soft violet that meant deep thought. I felt it too last night, like a hum beneath my thoughts. They called a council. But this time Kate did not wait for debate. She gathered a small team, including Nessa, now head of interspecies wellness, and Dr. Elias, who had never stopped studying the anomalies of the Veil. The journey to Elysium 9 was tense. The ship's comms crackled with interference, not from machines but from something organic, as if space itself was breathing wrong. When they landed, the colony was eerily still. No alarms, no shouts, just silence. The air tasted metallic and cold. They found the colonists sitting in the central plaza, eyes open, unblinking, hands folded in their laps like statues. Kate approached one, a woman named Maya. She had met her years ago during the Kalis rebuilding. Maya had been full of laughter. Then now her face was blank. Kate touched her hand gently. Maya 4. A heartbeat, nothing. Then Maya's lips moved, not in speech but in a hum. The same frequency Kate had felt in the bond. It is not a disease, Nessa whispered. It is a callback on the ship. They analyzed the hum. It matched no known signal, but when they ran it through the Veil beacon archives, it resonated with the Watcher's final transmission. They are not sick. Kate realized they are answering what a memory surfaced from her time beyond the Veil. The Watchers had spoken of the hungry, ones who consumed not with teeth but with silence, who erased by making others forget who they were. This was not an invasion. It was an echo. The hungry ones were gone, but their song remained, drifting through the void like a ghost, and some minds were too open, too weary to resist it. We cannot fight a song with weapons, Kate said. We must sing louder. She returned to Zero with a plan, not of shields or quarantines, but of stories. Every species would share its oldest tales, its songs, its lullabies, not through data streams but through live voices carried on the Unity network. She asked Lyra to speak to her people in the old royal tongue, the one used only in ceremonies. She asked Earth to broadcast folk songs from every culture. She asked the Krell to hum their hive ancestry, the Naiads to chant ocean birth poems, the Vornay to recite star meditations, and she asked every child in the galaxy to draw a picture of home and send it into the network. The response was overwhelming. Within days, the static in the bond began to fade, replaced by a chorus of voices. Human, Xanthari, Krell, Naiad, Vornay, all singing. Not the same song, but their own in harmony. On Elysium 9. Maya blinked. Then she wept. One by one, the colonists returned to themselves, not cured but remembered. The same happened on the Xanthari outpost. A young researcher named Torin woke, shouting his grandmother's name. He had not thought of her in years, but her lullaby had cut through the fog. Kate watched the reports come in from across the galaxy, and for the first time in months she slept without dreams. But the victory was not without cost. During the height of the singing, Lyra collapsed, not from illness but from strain. The bond between her and Kate had acted as a conduit, and while Kate's human mind could filter the static, Lyra's Xanthari consciousness had absorbed it all. Trying to protect her, Kate held her in the healing chamber, her hands trembling as the royal physicians worked. You fool, she whispered, tears falling onto Lyra's face. Why would you take it all? Because Lyra said, her voice weak but clear. You are my heart, and I would rather break than let you fade. Kate pressed the bond pendant to Lyra's chest and began to sing, not a Xanthari hymn, not a human ballad, but the first song she had ever made up for Biscuit, a silly tune about a cat who chased twin sons. Slowly, Lyra's light patterns returned, soft gold, then warm amber, then steady blue. In the weeks that followed, Lyra recovered, but something had shifted. She moved slower, spoke less often, but when she did, her words carried more weight than ever. One evening, as they sat in the garden watching Biscuit chase fireflies that glowed in Xanthari colors, Lyra said, I am tired. Kate knew what she meant, not of body, but of role. You have given them everything, Kate said, more than anyone ever asked. But you gave them something I never could. Lyra replied, you gave them hope that did not come from power, but from kindness. They sat in silence for a long time, then Kate spoke softly. What if we step back, not disappear, Lyra said, but let others lead? So it was decided, not with fanfare, but with quiet grace. Over the next year, they trained new leaders from every species. Nessa would oversee the Unity Academies, Lisa would manage Earth's cultural outreach. Torin would head the Veil Monitoring Initiative, and even Tarek of House Vorlax, now a respected diplomat, would represent the noble houses in a new council of equals. Kate and Lyra would remain as advisors, as elders, as living memory, but no longer as rulers. The day of the transition dawned clear and bright. The entire planet gathered in the Capitol Plaza, not to mourn, but to celebrate. Lyra stood on the balcony one last time and spoke, not as queen, but as Lyra. We built a world not of perfection but of trying, she said, and that is enough. Then she took Kate's hand and walked down the steps into the crowd, not above them but among them. They moved to a small home on the edge of the silver forest, far from the palace but close to the academy. Biscuit claimed the sunniest window, and Nessa visited every week with tea and news. Kate wrote books now not grand histories but simple stories for children about listening, about sharing, about cats who loved two sons Lyra gardened planting earth flowers beside Zinthari sky moss, watching them grow together. One afternoon as they sat on their porch watching the twin suns dip below the trees, a young girl approached shyly. She held a data slate with a drawing on it. Two women hand in hand under swirling stars. "My teacher said, you are the reason we all speak to each other," she said. Kate smiled and patted the bench beside her. "Sit." The girl did, and Lyra handed her a cup of sweet moss tea. They talked of school of dreams, of what she wanted to be when she grew up. "A bridge," she said, like you. Kate looked at Lyra and saw the same truth reflected in her eyes. Their work was not done. It never would be. But it was no longer theirs alone that night. As they lay in bed, biscuit curled between them, Kate whispered, "Do you ever miss the throne?" Lyra took her hand, the bond pendant warm between their palms. "No," she said. "I have everything I ever wanted right here." Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant singing human voices. Zinthari hums, Krell clicks, Naiad chants, all rising together into the starlit sky. And in that moment, Kate knew they had not just saved the galaxy. They had taught it how to sing itself back to life. The years would pass. The songs would change. New voices would join, old ones would fade. But the harmony would remain, because once you learn to listen, you never truly forget. And somewhere in a small house beneath twin suns, two women held hands and dreamed of a universe that chose kindness over fear every single day. In the quiet hum of the galactic summit chamber aboard the orbital station, Viridia Prime, every ambassador from every known species stood frozen. The air itself seemed to hold its breath as Queen Lyra of the Zinthari Empire stepped forward, her tall, slender form shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed like slow heartbeats. Her 6 eyes fixed not on the assembled dignitaries but on one lone human standing near the back of the room. Kate Morgan had not expected to be here at all. She was only a junior xenolinguist assigned to translate minor trade agreements between the insectoid Krell and the aquatic naiads. She wore a simple gray uniform with no insignia, no medals, just a name tag that read K. Morgan. And yet the queen of the most powerful empire in the known galaxy was walking straight toward her. Ignoring protocol, ignoring centuries of tradition, ignoring the gasps and murmurs rippling through the chamber. Queen Lyra stopped mere inches from Kate, her long fingers brushing the air near Kate's shoulder as if afraid to touch her. The queen's voice, when it came, was low, melodic, and carried through the silent room like a ripple across still water. "I want you as my husband." The words hung there, heavy, impossible, absurd. Kate blinked once, twice, her mind scrambling to process what she had just heard. She glanced around, hoping someone would laugh. Break the tension. Explain. It was a translation error. But no one moved. The Krell ambassador's mandibles clicked. Nervously, the Naiad envoy floated lower in her water sphere, her gills flaring in shock. Even the stoic Vornai delegates shifted uneasily in their armored suits. Husband. The word echoed in Kate's head. She was a woman, not a man. And yet in Zinthari culture, the term husband was not gendered. It meant chosen partner, life bond, sovereign consort, the highest honor their society could bestow. But why her Queen Lyra seemed to sense her confusion. Her primary eyes softened while the smaller ones flickered. With something that looked like vulnerability. "You saved my life," she said softly, "during the ion storm near the Helios belt 3 cycles ago." Kate remembered that day vividly. It had been her first deep space assignment, a routine shuttle run, when a sudden solar flare knocked out navigation systems across the sector. She had rerouted emergency power, rerouted comms, rerouted everything while others panicked. She had stayed calm, cool, precise, and in doing so had unknowingly guided a damaged Xanthari royal vessel safely through the storm. He had never known who was aboard. "I watched you through the view screen." Lyra continued. "Your hands never shook, your voice never wavered. You spoke to your crew like they were your family. And in that moment I knew you were the one." The chamber erupted into chaos. Ambassadors shouted over each other, demanding explanations. Some accused the humans of manipulation. Others whispered that the queen had gone mad. But Lyra raised a single hand, and silence fell again like a curtain. "I do not ask, I declare," she said, her voice ringing with authority. "This human, Kate Morgan, will stand beside me, not as a trophy, not as a symbol, but as my equal, My voice. My heart. Kate felt her knees weaken. She had read about the Xanthari, their biology, their politics, their mating rituals, which involved neural bonding so deep it could kill one partner if the other died. Suddenly she had never imagined she would be part of it, but something in Lyra's gaze held her steady. Not just power but sincerity. Not just desire but respect. Still she had to ask, why me? You could have anyone. Any species, any warrior, diplomat, genius. Why a low-level translator from Earth? Because Lyra said, stepping closer, her voice dropping to a whisper, only you saw the storm not as a threat but as a problem to solve. Only you treated your crew not as subordinates, but as people. Only you acted without thought of reward or recognition. That is the soul I need beside me, not strength of arm but strength of spirit. Kate swallowed hard, her mind racing through 1,000 objections. She was human. Her lifespan was a fraction of the Queen's. She had no training for court politics. She had bills back on Earth. She had a cat named Biscuit waiting for her. But then she looked into those 6 eyes and saw something she had never seen before in all her years of studying alien culture's truth. Before she could speak, the station. Alarms blared, red lights flashed across the ceiling. A deep voice boomed over the intercom. Breach in Sector 7, unidentified vessel docking without clearance. Panic surged again, but this time Kate did not freeze. She turned to Lyra and without thinking said, lock down the eastern corridors, reroute power to shield generators. They'll come through the maintenance shaft. How do you know? Lyra asked, because Kate said grimly, that is what I would do. The Queen smiled, a rare, genuine expression that lit up her entire face. Then she took Kate's hand, not with force, but with invitation. They moved together through the chaos corridors, flashing red emergency lights, casting long shadows behind them. Xanthari guards flanked them, their armored forms moving with lethal grace. But it was Kate who gave the orders. Seal Junction, B-12. Activate decoy signals in the cargo bays, flood the lower decks with inert gas, not enough to harm but enough to slow them down. Who are they? Kate asked as they reached the command nexus. Rebels, Lyra said bitterly. Those who believe the Empire should remain pure, uncorrupted by outsiders. They see my choice as weakness. They're wrong, Kate said simply. How can you be sure? Because love is never weakness, Kate replied. And for the first time she believed her own words. At the heart of the station they found the intruders, already inside, a dozen armed Xanthari rebels led by a scarred general named Vorlax. He sneered when he saw Kate. You bring a soft human to face us, my queen. Have you lost your mind? Lyra stepped forward, but Kate gently held her back. No, let me. She walked alone toward the rebels, her hands empty, her posture calm. She stopped 10 feet away and said, you think I am weak because I am human, because I do not carry a weapon, because I do not roar or threaten. Vorlax laughed a harsh clicking sound. But you are the weak ones, she continued. Your fear makes you violent. Your pride blinds you to truth. The Queen does not choose me because I am strong in your way. She chooses me because I see what you refuse to see. That unity is stronger than purity, that compassion is not surrender. Vorlax raised his weapon, but before he could fire, the station shook violently. Alarms shifted to a higher pitch. What is that? Lyra asked. Kate smiled faintly. Looks like my crew had my back through the main viewport, a human frigate. The modest S. Mariposa appeared flanked by 2 Xanthari peacekeepers. It had been following the summit discreetly as backup, and now it opened fire, not to destroy but to disable the rebel ship, cutting off their escape. Vorlax snarled and lunged, but Kate did not flinch. She simply said, Nauxen. Theri guards emerged from hidden panels surrounding the rebels, their weapons humming to life. Vorlax froze, then slowly lowered his army. You win, he spat. No, Kate said, we all win if we choose. In the days that followed, the galaxy buzzed with the news the human translator had not only been chosen by the Xanthari Queen, but had helped stop a coup with nothing but words and quick thinking. Earth received messages of congratulations from dozens of species. The United Nations scrambled to promote Kate to ambassador, though she politely declined. She had a new role now on the royal Xanthari world of Zira, beneath twin suns and silver trees. Kate stood beside Lyra in a ceremony older than human civilization. The neural bond was not forced, it was offered and accepted, both women linking their minds, hearts, and futures together, not as human and alien, but as partners. Kate still missed Biscuit, but Lyra had arranged for the cat to be brought, Jazira complete with a custom habitat that mimicked Earth's gravity and climate as they walked through the palace gardens hand in hand. Kate asked, "Do you ever doubt your choice, Lee?" Ra looked at her, the bioluminescence in her skin glowing warm gold. "Never." She said, "You are my storm calm, my problem solver, my husband." Kate smiled and squeezed her hand, and for the first time in her life she felt not like a small human in a vast universe, but like exactly where she was meant to be.